I want to start out with the history of money. I think it's very important. And I'll cite from Neil Ferguson's book, The Ascent of Money, where Professor Ferguson says in the book there are three axiomatic facts about it. Number one, it's a technology that we're using to transfer goods and services among ourselves to avoid bartering. Number two, it's a trusted network. And so I brought some props tonight. And so you see these in my neighborhood, these are Italian singles. And okay, and now what are these things? They're actually pieces of fabric. We call it paper money. But this piece of fabric here is about 25% linen, 75% cotton. There's a little strip in there. Interestingly enough, for America, only white dead males on our money. Last industrial nation that does that. But what is this really worth? At the end of the day, it's not worth that much. And one of the axiomatic facts from Professor Ferguson's book is that this technology, this money, is always worth less than the goods and services that we're transacting for. But what's important about this is it's a trusted network. I can pass this on to somebody, and they know with great confidence they can pass it on to somebody else. But as Satoshi Nakamoto said, or the group of people known as Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, and the group or the gentleman or the woman that wrote this white paper, they basically explained that this money throughout history has been corrupted. And this money throughout history, particularly in the modern era, we've had two big episodic events, 2008 into 9, and now the COVID-19 situation where we're manufacturing this money. And it's causing some level of instability in our society. In the United States, $469 billion was printed in the first 5 months of the year. As you know from some of our past conversations, I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was a laborer. He was an hourly worker. I priced his earnings in 2016 while I was on the presidential campaign. And I pointed out to then the candidate, my dad's 1976 earnings priced in 2016, they were down in real terms 26.5%. If you're listening in and you have dollar denominated assets, well, you've been taxed by the central bank because of inflation. The $10,000 that you had in your bank account last year has the purchasing power equivalent of $9,200. And so in comes Satoshi Nakamoto with this idea. And the central thesis of this idea and the eureka moment for me was the notion that the blockchain could create a permissionless transaction between two parties that may not know each other, don't necessarily have to trust each other, but over the blockchain, they can make this transaction by creating a decentralized effect, taking out third parties. And this is something that I think is a eureka moment. And if you go back and study gold and you understand why this precious metal has value, about 5 or 6% of the cost of gold would be for the manufacturing effect that gold has on our society. The rest of it is the perception of that store of value. And I think this cryptocurrency revolution, and Bitcoin specifically, because of its scarcity, is going to transcend gold. It's more portable. It's impregnable in terms of the transaction over the blockchain and that network. And it's being adopted quite rapidly, a result of which the prices are going to go a lot higher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony, and very good. I love this self-monitoring where you actually stop on time, because this hardly ever happens for a moderator. So I'm unemployed, carry on. We've had a very good introduction there. I've got a couple of questions I want to probe and follow up with you, and I'm sure our audience do too, but I think it's nice to hear the other side of the argument straight away while it's fresh in our minds. So Peter Schiff, economist, global strategist for Euro-Pacific Capital. He's chairman of Schiff Gold, a precious metals dealer that does what it says on the tin there, specializing in investment grade gold and silver bullion. He also hosts the Peter Schiff Show. Many of you will know is a very popular podcast about the economy, in which he often denounces the rise of cryptocurrency and creates bare knuckle fights on my team about whether they're on his side or Anthony's. Peter, take us away with gold.
Thank you, Anthony. And, might I add, I've been wearing those salt baseball caps around Dorado, so I still get a lot of use out of those.
Thank you for that.
But, let me say at the start, I fully expect to lose this debate because I've done these debates before. And what I've found is the Bitcoin people at the beginning vote that they're in favor of gold just so they can switch to Bitcoin at the end so that Bitcoin could win. So I'm prepared for that. But anyway, and the other thing about these gold versus Bitcoin type debates is that in reality, Bitcoin and gold have absolutely nothing in common. I mean, Bitcoin, part of the marketing fraud is to try to portray Bitcoin as gold 2.0, digital gold. I mean, Bitcoin itself is always displayed as a coin and the color is gold and you put like a B on it. But it's not a coin. It's just a digital string of numbers. It doesn't have any substance. It doesn't have any color. And what made gold money was the properties that gold, the element, possesses as a metal, as a commodity. Bitcoin doesn't possess any of the metallic properties that gives gold value. Now, what Bitcoin tried to mimic was some of the other qualities that made gold a better form of money than other commodities that could be and have been used as money. You see, by definition, money is simply the most marketable commodity. And yes, Anthony mentioned that we used to have barter, and money was an invention that made trade more efficient because barter is inherently very inefficient. And so the invention of money was a major progress as far as human history is concerned. And a lot of things were money before gold ultimately emerged as the best money because it satisfied the qualities of money best. And some of the qualities that gold had, divisibility, portability, fungibility, these are some of the properties that Bitcoin copied. But without the fundamental value of gold, a metal, Bitcoin can never be money because money has to be a store of value. And a lot of people in the crypto community try to claim that Bitcoin is a store of value because if you bought it 10, 11 years ago, the price has gone up. Well, there's a difference between a price and value. The reason that gold is a store of value is because you're storing the value of the metal gold. Gold can be used to do all sorts of things. Sure, you could use it for jewelry. I got a gold watch on that's made of jewelry, and a lot of the gold is used in jewelry, but gold is used in industry, it's used in aerospace, medicine, dentistry. There's all sorts of demands for gold, the metal, because it is the most useful metal on the periodic table. And even if I'm not going to use the gold myself for any of those uses, even if I'm just going to store gold coins or gold bars, in my safe, what I am doing is storing the future use of gold because gold does not lose any of its properties over time. That's what makes it such a good store of value because in 100 years, in 1,000 years, the gold that I'm storing today can be melted down and used in electronics or used in jewelry or for whatever new uses have been invented that don't even exist today. In contrast, Bitcoin can't be a store of value because it has no actual value to store. There's nothing I can do with my Bitcoin today. There's nothing anybody else can do with it tomorrow. Sure, you can give it to somebody else. You could trade Bitcoin. But why does somebody want your Bitcoin? Because they think they can give it to somebody else who thinks they can give it to somebody else at a higher price. This is a greater fool. What Bitcoin in effect is kind of like a combination Ponzi scheme, pyramid, chain letter. The only value comes from the belief that the Bitcoin can be sold in the future to a greater fool who is equally convinced he can sell it in the future at a higher price. This isn't digital gold. This is fool's gold. This is modern day alchemy. Bitcoin doesn't have a future. To me, it's not gold 2.0. This is tulip mania 2.0, except tulips had more intrinsic value than Bitcoin because at the end of the day, at least you had a flower.
Thank you.
6 minutes?
Actually, you were 5.5, so I'll give you
All
your
right.
30 seconds back. I owe you one, right? Right. Okay. So now we're going to start getting in some audience questions. Please do submit yours. You do it on the Q&A button. I'm going to spend a few minutes basically just nagging the panelists to see if I can get a bit more value out of them, get them to test some of their own convictions, because I always feel when people come in as convinced as these two are, there must be a soft edge to their argument, a cliff edge that we could perhaps probe. But the main thing I'd really like you to do, audience, and I've got a lot of subscribers on this call, please do send in your questions. I'm far better at this if you send me questions, otherwise I'll just rabbit on. And I think it would be much nicer to have some questions. We've got a few in already, so let's get them in. And of course you can tweet as well, hashtag IQ2Crypto. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Anthony. When you say this is, in a sense, a bit of a breakthrough moment, one thing I would like to know from you is, what is the problem to which cryptocurrency is the answer? We'll come on to whether it's a bubble in a minute and whether you owe each other a tulip or not. But is there something that is really going on here, or is it just kind of a nice idea because we've got the technology, so we might as well?
Well, listen, there's a lot going on. I mean, I just 30 seconds of addressing Peter. I think it's important. If you accept that we've moved into a digital society, and if you accept that we're adopting things on the internet